Greetings out there. It's David Duford from Final Expense Agent Mentor at feagentmentor.com, and today I have the pleasure to be doing an interview with a longtime friend and agent of mine, Wade Lewis, out of Kentucky. And what we're going to talk about today is some of the benefits of selling final expense life insurance. So, Wade, go ahead and say hello.
Well, hello there.
Hey, Wade. And yeah, what we're going to do is basically start with a little introduction from Wade. So, Wade, go ahead and take the microphone and tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Thanks, David, and thanks for that introduction. That was very exciting, especially this early in the morning. That was awesome. Well, like you said, my name is Wade Lewis, and I live in Kentucky, the Bluegrass State, and been doing final expense for, well, you have to add it up, because I did a stint in it for a while, left for a while, and came back, and happy ever since. But several years, and I'm not a spring chicken anymore, but still been doing it several years. Love what I do, love David, love the system and everything, so I'm excited to speak with him for a few minutes today and speak with you guys today and see if we can share anything that may be helpful for you.
Well, you mentioned there a moment ago, Wade, that you had a stint at one time in the final expense business. So I was curious to hear is what exactly is your background in selling insurance in general, and then how did you end up becoming, I guess, totally committed to selling final expense to where you are today?
At the beginning, I was actually on the opposite side of the desk. I was a buyer. I was a senior buyer for an aerospace company. And, of course, I dealt with a lot of salesmen, obviously, but I was on the other side of the desk, and my best friend, a good friend, he was doing insurance at the time. He sure seemed to not work as much as I did, and they had a much bigger house and nicer car and stuff. So I was asking him, kind of about what he did and how he did it. He's the one that kind of got me started in it. The only thing is, not too long after I got my license and kind of got started, I joined a captive company where you were a career agent or a captive agent, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with that, but as we talk later, you'll probably understand why it's not the best fit for me, especially. But so, although my earning was better than when I was doing the buying and stuff like that, it still was limited. Because, again, when they ask you about a life product, you have to show that life product. And if the help isn't good enough, you just have to smile and say, I'm sorry, I can't help you. If you're selling a supplement, you have to use that supplement and that price only. So anyway, so that was a little restrictive. I did well. My rookie year, I was in the top 3 in the nation, that particular company. So it's not like it was a flop or a bust, but it was still restrictive. So a little bit later, life went on, and I had another friend that was pretty high up in the pharmaceutical industry and had a position come open in my area for a pharmaceutical rep. And I'm not talking about the glorified UPS men that just took the samples to the doctor. This was a IV drug that was used in a hospital, so money was really, really good and equivalent and possibly a little bit better. So I jumped ship for that for a while, and then got back into insurance, I guess about 4 years ago now. So between the two, I've been at it a little over 11, 12 years maybe, right at 11 years, and absolutely loving it now. Completely different situation than what I was in before, and I absolutely love it.
So, and that's great, Wade. I didn't know you held such prestigious positions, man. That explains your high intelligence from what you had sold in the past. So.
Oh, thank you.
But I'm curious. You mentioned a few things. I guess you would call them buzzwords that I'd like for you to explain if we kind of take the perspective of a new agent listening. You said at one point you were captive, and that now in essence you're independent. What I was hoping you could do is kind of explain briefly the difference, and then why that being independent is superior over being captive, especially as it pertains to a final expense model of doing business.
Absolutely. And again, that was my first go around with insurance in general in this industry and things, and I really didn't even know what a captive agent was. I just knew that if I was going to sell insurance, it had to be for ABC Company, and that's really all I knew at the time. And really, to be honest with you, as a captive agent, I didn't know what I was missing, because I didn't know any different, to be honest with you. I just knew that, if they had this illness, we couldn't get them life insurance. I knew not to even take the application, or if this was wrong with them, I would just have to say, I'm sorry, and those types of things. The same thing with the long-term care or the annuities. I knew what our interest rate was on our annuities, and I knew there were some others better ones out there, but just that wasn't what I was showing. So I don't know if ignorance is bliss, or you can just call it being a rookie, but I really didn't know what I was missing. But that's exactly what it entails. You show them that company's product at whatever price it is, whatever underwriting guidelines they have, whatever interest rate they're paying. You're just showing it that, and you're trying to find people to fit that product. As a broker, an independent agent, it's completely different. I'm not trying to find people to fit that product. I'm trying to find the right product to fit the people that I'm seeing that day. And it is a huge difference. I just cannot tell you the difference it makes, because even when I was there and even today, I really am just trying to help my people. Every time I knock on the door, I go in and smile and look at them and just wonder how I can help them that day. And having other companies and other products being able to help them makes a huge difference. Now we have so many companies, regardless of their health, and I mean literally regardless of their health, we can get them coverage. And I love that part of it. Love it.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head, Wade, as far as the difference between captive and independent. The takeaway for me, which is why I started independent, because I saw the difference between being captive and independent, the difference between making more sales and making more money versus not doing that. Because when you're captive, the root word or a similar word of captive is captivity. You're stuck with one product and one way of doing things. Not that you can't be successful doing it. It just severely limits your capability to write the person for the best price and the best coverage. And what I guess what I'm curious about, if you could give some examples, Wade, I know I'm kind of calling you out in the top of your head. Have you run into any cases over the last month that you think if you were captive with your old agency that you couldn't have gotten the kind of coverage you did now as an independent? I'm just curious if you could give an example or two, if you could think of any.
Absolutely, and it's not just this month. It's yesterday. I wrote 6 deals. I wrote 6 deals yesterday, and a couple of them were very unhealthy. And I was proud to help them, and they were very happy that I was there, and said that they'd been looking around and no one would insure them, or it was extremely expensive. But just to give you some examples, COPD is a tough one out there, and you would be surprised, or I was surprised, how many people that particular disease has touched. Now, a lot of it's kind of brought on by themselves, but anyway, it's out there a lot. That's a huge difference. Insulin-dependent diabetes, having a carrier that has day one coverage for insulin versus a 2-year wait. That's another thing. It's not necessarily maybe that some of these other companies won't cover these people. In some instances, they just flat out will not. But in some, they will, but it's extremely expensive and you have a 2-year wait.
Right.
We have so many options out there now with the companies that we're contracted with of getting folks day one coverage, meaning there is no waiting period. You take it out one day and pass away from a heart attack the next day, you get the entire benefit. That is huge. So the insulin, the COPDs, I have one yesterday that was bipolar. He's a great guy. Unfortunately, he had a history of suicide attempts in many years, but still he was struggling with that disease, but nothing else really wrong. He took a high blood pressure pill, like most folks are a little bit older, but having companies that say, you know what, after the age of so-and-so, bipolar is not even a question on our app. And he was so happy that we were able to do that for him. So I know you asked for one example, but the list goes on and on and on. It's just, and I tell my folks, in my opening, we're contracted with multiple companies, and I try not to scare them with a really high number, but I'll say,
right.
When I help folks with the final expense and these kind of types of products, I said, I'm contracted with, a dozen or so companies, and the reason I do that is I shop based on your age and your health. It's why I do what I do. And the companies do differ. I'm not exactly sure why, but I've got this company over here that has the absolute lowest rates for older seniors on insulin, and I've got this one over here that is my best one for folks with heart problems. And this company will take COPD, and this company won't take COPD. So I shop based on your age and your health. Therefore, I can tell you that you can't purchase permanent whole life insurance in the state of Kentucky any cheaper than you can get it through me. And I look him in the eye and I say that with confidence. And it's David's system and our system and the companies that he's rounded up for this system that allows me to say that with confidence, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I think you explained it perfectly, because what I try to convey when I talk to people who are interested in selling final expense is that the beauty of being independent is that there's just so many benefits. First of all, you have options for your customers. You're not forced, you're not under pressure to push a product on somebody that is unsuitable or inferior because of the limitations inherent in that product's underwriting. There is no perfect product out there for final expense. Some agents will even refer to which product is the least worst out of the bunch. Now, those are a little bit more of the old grizzly, cynical types. But
wow.
Yeah, I know. But the point remains. The thing is that every company has a particular niche that it tries to master. Some companies, like Wade mentioned, will take COPD, first day coverage. Others won't. But the great thing about it being independent is that you're not married to any of them. You pick the product that's going to give your client the best price and the best value of coverage. So being independent, it changes the whole dynamics of the sales process. So first of all, you sell more. You see more people, you sit down with them, and it's easier to sell them because you can, like Wade said, look them in the eye and say, I'm on your side. I'm not married to these guys. I'm not pushing a company just because I'm forced to, because that's how I get my check every month. I'm offering this product because I offer them all. The ones that are worth having, I've got them. And so it allows you to sell in a manner to where you're much more low-key, you're consultative, and because of that, you're going to sell more people. You're not going to be under as much pressure to, like I said, to sell something that's knowingly inferior. And so people see that and feel that and are going to be more comfortable to buy from you, and you're going to have better quality of business. One of the challenges in final expense is the quality of the business that stays on the books. Every time you sell a policy that's inferior, that doesn't do the best job for the client, you're setting yourself up for some other guy to walk in and replace you. And that means you're not going to make any future renewals. You may have to pay some of your charge back or some of your advance commission back, depending on what point it's replaced. But the point is by being an independent agent, by offering multiple companies, it allows you to sell more people, which at the end of the day allows you to make more money. And who can argue with that?
That was well said about the confidence that it gives you. And I didn't mention that. I guess I have that because I've been doing this for so long, but not confidence in a braggadocious way, but just I literally have so many options, and the system is set up so well that I know when I'm sitting there, I don't have what I call commission breath. And I was able to work myself into the management position at the captive company, and I would tell my agents about commission breath because people can smell it, and that's when you have this one product or this one company, and you're sitting there pushing that particular thing. Not that life insurance is bad for a person, but if it's not the best product out there, you will get replaced. But they would be listening for these keywords and triggers and health issues, and their face would just drain out when they would hear them. I, on the other hand, is sitting there as calm as can be, just sincerely, just listening to them to see how I can help them. And I'm telling you, they can smell it, they can see it, they can sense it, in my experience.
Yeah, I mean, that was such a great analogy there. The captive guy is hoping you don't say you have COPD or you've got severe diabetes. With us, we think, oh, okay, it's going to make it a little harder to find something. But never do we think, well, we can't do anything. because we have the ability, again, because of our positioning, to get the best deal for the client. So at the end of the day, everybody's happy. We're happy because we made a sale. They're happy because they're getting a great deal and a great value, too, on top of all that.
Well said.
So what I want to ask you now, Wade, again, a lot of people listening in this phone call are brand new or thinking about getting into the final expense business. I'd like for you, if you don't mind, just to take us through a typical day. And when I say typical, I'd like to hear kind of about when you start the day, when you end the day, kind of how a presentation goes, the kind of people you see, the good and the bad too. And just so somebody listening who's thinking, well, what is final expense like on a face-to-face basis? What are the people like? If you don't mind kind of taking us from bottom to top, that'd be great.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I just want to say that I love what I do, and I cannot thank David enough and that organization for what he's done, discovered, and shared with me, which is extremely important. So I love what I do every day, and I do not dread it when my alarm clock goes off. So there's something to be said for that, regardless of what you make. However, I'll just tell you, I've got appointments every day, and which is nice.
Yeah.
I'll take off some days on purpose, obviously, just because I want to be honest with you. But anyway, generally speaking, I'll get up and I'll kind of get myself organized. Now, I'll know what my appointments are, obviously, the day before. But I run a CRM-based thing to keep up with my clients and callbacks and prospects and leads and different things like that. So I'll dust that off in the morning and kind of see who I need to retouch today. You know, I saw him 2 weeks ago, and I wrote a guy Monday I saw 2 or 3 weeks ago, and the day I saw him, he had wrecked his car. It wasn't his fault that he totaled it. And we always get a lot of excuses, but he sat down with me anyway, and he said, wait, can I just get a new car and get figured out what the payment's going to be and then get back with you? And so I followed up with him. That was a CRM touch that I followed up, and he said, oh, thank goodness you called. He said, I was just thinking about you today. Can you come down today? I've got a new car. I'm ready to go. So I went and rode him up that evening. So that's important to me. So I'll do that in the morning just to kind of see who I need to follow up with again that day. Then I'll start in on my appointments. I usually have anywhere from 4 to 7 a day, depending on where I'm working and how many are set. And David, you said to go through the good and the bad, and so I'll tell you, some of those are not there. No, you can't believe that, but they are absolutely.
They didn't show up?
That's a shocker, isn't it? They set an appointment for 9 a.m., and they are not there at 9 a.m., believe it or not. So that always discourages me. I'm one that I like to keep my word. I like to be honest with people. I like to be on time. Ask my wife. She's not the greatest at that, and so we've had our spirited discussions, we'll call them, about being on time. So that bothers me. I've learned over the years to let it go and know that there's so many people out there that need my help and want my help. It's okay to have a no-show. So at the end of the day, it's going to happen, and this is how I deal with it, is it's going to happen, and I can't change that. So because I can't change that, I move on, and that's extremely important. If you want the sun to come in your kitchen window, you can build a house one way, and if it doesn't, you can try and change the sun coming up in the east, or you can just turn the house around. And I just choose to turn the house around because I'm not going to sign up for the class that tries to change the sun. And the fact is that you're going to have some no-shows. So we have that going on. But the folks that are there, just like anybody else, some of them are extremely nice. Some of them are very cautious and skeptical. Some of them are outright mean. But I know why I'm there. I know what I have to offer. So I don't let that bother me. I just go in and sit down and assess their needs. And I don't want to go through too many details. I mean, if you want to ask follow-up questions, I'll tell you exactly how I sell what I sell. But I basically just assess the need and see how I can help them. At the end of the day, I'm either A, saving them money by replacing what they have when it's appropriate. They're paying $57 and I have it for $52, and it's the exact same thing, and everybody's happy. Or if they don't have any at all, I help them get what they can. And when I say what they can, we're talking about affordability and things like that. And that goes back to placing the appropriate company, what we've already talked about, to the companies that we use. So that's what I do every day. The good is the smiles on their faces, the relief. You can see it's like just a weight off their shoulders that they've finally taken care of this. It's been on their mind for a long time, and finally they got someone there that knew what they were talking about, had good options, and was able to help them. So I'll do that when I get home at night. There's some paperwork. Thank goodness. I never complain about that.
Good problem to have.
Good problem to have. So I'll do that when I get home. I'm used to it, and sometimes I won't cross all the T's and dot all the I's when I'm out in the field, just for time's sake, especially if I'm writing a husband and wife. I don't put the address in the second application. I'll do that when I get home. But anyway, so I've got some paperwork at night, thank goodness. I'll upload my policies and double check any outstanding things that need to be done. And that I would consider to be a typical day. I hope I answered your question, but I'll be glad to go into any detail that you want.
Yeah, Wade, that's a great representation of how really a final expense agent operates. We get up, we do some busy work, and then we're out there seeing people on a daily basis. I mean, the activity of a final expense salesperson is all about seeing the people, getting out in front of them, doing a needs analysis and figuring out, is this person somebody who is qualified to buy, who fits the profile of what we're selling, or are they not qualified, and then moving on to the next one. What I did want to add or ask you, just if we think from the perspective of a new agent listening, you obviously it's clear in listening to you, you have a command of the business and you do very well at it. And those, of course, in any industry or in business, doing it long enough, the difficult appears simple. And so I'm sure some people think, well, geez, how hard is it to grasp the sales process, or how hard is it to grasp the product? Would you say, if knowing where you've been in your career, you've sold complex annuities, complex life insurance products, how would you compare the final expense product and the final expense process as far as the ease of learning it?
With that, in that particular area, I'm going to say it's actually very easy. And again, this is comparatively speaking. I mean, I've had my securities license, certified senior advisor, or certified long-term care specialist, which I don't use much anymore. So I've had my share of learning and been fortunate to be able to learn a lot of things. But final expense, to be honest with you, is actually very simple. The field underwriting was my toughest part, and that's where I cannot say enough good things. I'm not just trying to pump you up, David, but I told you this the other day when we were speaking, and this was not about a recording, is that how much I appreciated your mentorship and help on choosing the right product for these people in the field underwriting. In other words, here's the situation, here's the medications they take, here's the illnesses they've had, here's how long they've had them. All of those things factor into that. So that was my toughest part. But the way you have your system set up with the training and the mentorship and being able to call right from the home to the mentor and figure out what company and what product is best for them, that helped out tremendously. So that was a little, obviously a learning curve for me, but with your system, it was actually ended up being quite simple. And so comparatively speaking to, a final expense, whole life insurance policy versus an annuity that's indexed annuity that's linked to the S&P 500 and trying to explain that to all them, I would say it's quite simple, and I enjoy the simplicity of it.
Yeah, and that's exactly, in essence, what I tell new agents is that final expense, it's a simple process and it's a simple product. Now, I wouldn't go so far as to call it easy, again, from the context of the business itself. Just like you detailed in your day, we've got people who rudely don't show up for their appointments, even though they know we're coming. They just have issues themselves and they disappear. and leave us hanging. And we can't control that, and that's the process that you have to overcome personally, is realizing some of these things and learning how to manage the issues that happen daily. But in the process, the great thing I like about final expense, and why I feel so strongly as it being a great way to get into the insurance business, is because you don't need any technical certifications. You don't need to spend a lot of time learning technically how the product works. The reason people buy this is because they don't want their kids or their spouse to have to come out of pocket to bury them. And so the process of explaining is very simple. You pay this, it doesn't go up, and you've got your coverage. And that's kind of it in a nutshell. But it's no more complicated even on the back side, the underwriting side. We do what's called simplified issue, where as long as they can answer the questions on the application honestly, and as long as their prescriptions check out, and we've got all the resources to determine that ahead of the time, many times we can either get the deal sold and approved on the spot or within the next day or two if you don't get an instant approval. Again, this is compared to a complex universal life or fully underwritten product that sometimes will take months before you get any kind of underwriting approval, because they have to pull records, they have to look at health history, they've got to do underwriting, paramedicals, where they pull blood, urine, the whole gamut. And they may be declined after waiting months to see if A, they're going to get approved, and B, if you're going to get paid. For a new guy to come into this, if they've got the tenacity, if they've got the work ethic, and if they're coachable with the right attitude, they can take a couple of different carriers, learn them fairly quickly, and then with the underwriting questions like you addressed, that's the biggest thing to overcome. That's where we come in. We've got the experience, the field in the trenches experience to properly address and help an agent and say, hey, look, you've got a 500-pound, 5'0", bipolar, smoking, wheelchair occasional usage female that's 65. What do you do with this guy or this girl? Well, Royal Neighbors will take that case preferred level coverage, whereas most would never touch it with a 10-foot pole. But that's why we're here, to shorten that learning curve. Again, tying back to what you said earlier, we want to sell the best plan at the best price with the best value. And of course, you've got to learn which carriers for which situations are the best price, best value, and best overall carrier choice. And that's where we come in as mentors to say, hey, look, instead of taking a risk and putting this with a 2-year waiting period policy like Gerber, you can actually place it with Royal Neighbors. You get paid more, they're happy, and that policy is going to have a much higher chance of sticking. And that's what it's all about in the mentorship program at Final Expense Agent Mentor, getting the benefits of an independent approach to selling final expense, but also having the knowledge base of a mentorship arrangement to help you learn the process that much faster.
Very well said, and I think that's one of the reasons I love this system, is being able to do that, because I can assure you no one will ever replace the product that you use for the 500-pound person in the wheelchair. They're your client for life, and I love that part of it. These folks, they do shop. They're sending in mailers, and if they send one for you, they're sending it in for someone else. And I will tell you, I do replace significant. Most of my business, of course, is folks who just don't have any protection, either because of health or affordability. They have not been able to get any. And so I do, the majority of that, of people I help, is that situation. However, there's a good little piece of my business that is helping folks better their situation. And that's, someone in that same situation, the only company they could have was the one that's a 2-year wait and extremely expensive. And so there's something to be said for having those companies and being able to replace that business as well when it's appropriate.
Yeah, real quick question for you, Wade. Then you mentioned something about the mailers. If we think from the perspective of a new agent, you mentioned that some percentage of your sales is replacement, and this ties into the reason why you want to sell as an independent agent versus a captive agent. What percentage of your sales do you think are a replacement type of situation? Just a rough estimate.
I'm going to probably say in the 25% range. A couple out of 10,
Okay.
maybe 3 out of 10, something like that.
Yeah, and that actually is right about the average I would expect to hear. Now, here's the big takeaway point, and this is something for you new agents to ponder, because this is just so powerful. Imagine, let's say you have an agent that writes $200,000 in business a year. Okay, he's an independent agent, and he says that 30% of his business, of his sales, are replacement based. 30% of $200,000 is $60,000 in production. Now imagine that agent now is captive. He only sells one product. It happens to be some of the most expensive insurance on the market. If you've watched my other videos, you probably know I'm talking about the company named after a president. I'll leave it at that. And that's the perfect example. This particular agent would go most likely from writing $200,000 as an independent agent with options with more ability to sell to probably going from 30% of his sales as replacements to probably less than 10%. So what does that mean? At conservatively $40,000 in just production, he would lose out on sales. Now, multiply that over a 10-year period. That's $400,000 in production, not to even include the renewals, the referral opportunities, and all the benefits that would come from working that group of people. This is exemplary of why you have, if you're going to be serious about selling final expense, why you have to sell on an independent basis, because the income loss is exponential if you do not allow yourself to have the options to go out there and successfully sell every opportunity that you come across.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that. The 6 that I wrote yesterday, 4 were new, and 2 replaced the company that was named after a president. So,
yeah,
anyway,
I'm going to get hate mail now. I'll probably get death threats saying that that's a bald-faced lie. But
that's okay. We were just doing what's right for the people, and I did tell them that. Nothing against that company or any company.
Right.
The reality is that those people would pass. That company would pay the death benefit, and that's what ultimately you want. But I always tell my folks, and I told these folks yesterday, you cannot worry about the other agent. You cannot worry about me. You cannot worry about that company. You cannot worry about the company I'm going to use for you. You have to do what's right for Mr. and Miss Jones. I assure you, I'm not going to miss a meal, and the other agent isn't going to miss a meal. Don't worry about us. You do what's right for you. And what's right for you, obviously in this case, is to take the savings for the exact same product. And it's what we call in the business a no-brainer. And I was glad to help them.
Perfect. So let's continue forward. You mentioned a while back about mailers, and one of the cool things about the final expense business is that it's entirely unnecessary to cold prospect over the phone or go door to door. What we find that works nationally, whether I have agents in California all the way up to Boston, Massachusetts, is that the top agents, and you would be included in this, Wade, all do the same kind of lead generation. And what I'd like to hear from Wade is what that is and why he thinks it's so powerful in the results that he gets.
Absolutely. I probably, if it weren't for our lead system, lead generation, I probably would do something different as a career. And that's probably surprising for you to hear. I'm doing well with this, and I've been very blessed. But the reason I am is, number one, the mentorship from you, David, and from your system. The second is just the way that I'm able to see prospects. And that is the lead system, where folks are returning a little flyer in the mail requesting information about this. And it says final expense, burial, kind of lets them know what this is about. And without that, wouldn't go door to door. I wouldn't grab the phone book. I would go back to pharmaceuticals, or I don't know what I would do, but it's just an awesome system, because you're talking to people that want to talk to you. Every once in a while, you're going to run into the ones that, hey, I thought it was free. Well, again, I'm not going to try and change the sunrise. I'm just going to go to the next one. But it is an awesome system to get in front of people that are looking for information that you have. Because I've said it my entire career, it doesn't matter what product you have or how awesome your product is. If you don't get in front of the people that need and want that product, it doesn't matter. You could have gold bars for $20 a piece for all the redheaded people whose last name started with T. And that would be an incredible deal. But if you don't have a system to get in front of all the redheaded people whose last name starts with T, then you just got a garage full of gold bars at a really good deal. And so I cannot say enough how important it is to have this lead system where they're mailing back requesting information from you and then going out and seeing those folks versus cold calling. To be honest with you, David, I love you, but I probably just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, and truth be told, neither would I, because as you know, and as I've experienced, prospecting on a cold basis, especially in a residential fashion, is probably the most grueling form of torture. I mean, prospecting that's out there. And I give props to people who do it. What's great, though, in the final expense business, it's entirely unnecessary. And as I tell every agent that comes on board with me, what I want to do in bringing a new guy on is simply show them and simply duplicate what works for the top 10% of agents. And I tell them an old Brian Tracy line. He always said that success leaves clues. And the guys at the top used to be the guys at the bottom, and they got smart and figured out, well, I need to follow what the guys do at the top in order to be at the top alongside with them, as opposed to reinventing the wheel. And in final expense, the top 10% of agents, all the agents that go on convention, all the agents that write $150,000 to $200,000 a year, they're writing $15,000 to $20,000 a month in production steadily on a consistent basis. Virtually all of them do some sort of direct mail final expense lead program. And the funny thing is that if you guys can't see this on the call, the leads aren't anything miraculous per se. I mean, the truth is we're all doing something similar. To some extent, what the lead card says is important, but it's also the manner in which we target, the manner in which we run the lead program to give you leads steadily on an almost consistent basis. There's nothing that's ever perfect. That's why I say almost. It's almost completely turnkey. You get leads fresh every Thursday. These are people who have responded within the last week or two, so their interest level is peaked. And all your job is to either show up unannounced with the card in hand and ask for an appointment on the spot, many times to sell them, or just to simply call ahead, either outsourcing that job to an appointment setter or doing it yourself. Both works fine. It just depends on your personal preference. And just literally rinsing and repeating. Talking to guys in my agency, again, talking to guys across the country. What I described is exactly what they do. There's no magic. There's no silver bullet. If there is a silver bullet, it's the fact that they were shown the process and shown how to make it happen, connecting the dots and having the coaching behind it to make sure that it happens effectively.
Very well said. I did the same thing, even at starting off with the captive agency. Of course, I was brand new to insurance, and I was just forced to say, instead of me trying to figure out this industry that I know nothing about, I went to the top two guys and I tugged on their coattail and said, "Excuse me, my name is Wade. How do you do it?" And I mean that literally, because I just had no interest in trying to. I have no pride issues or anything like that, trying to figure stuff out. There's some people that are a lot smarter than me. However, if it's work, it's work. And I am very good at duplicating something that's already been successful. And I think most people can. If you have the right work ethic and one eye and half a brain, you can copy someone successful, even if we're not smart enough on our own to always come up with it on our own. I think anybody can do that, and I've done that for the rest of my career, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and that's so crucial to understand for the new agents out there, is that that's why we look for agents who have a coachable disposition, they have a positive attitude, and they have the ability to follow a system that's already been pre-programmed for them. We don't recruit agents because we want to test stuff out on them. No, we don't. We've already done the testing. We already know what works, and we know definitely, too, what doesn't work. And so, if we find an agent, it doesn't matter their background. People come into final expense from all sorts of directions. I mean, the strangest ways they end up kind of, stumbling on the final expense. It's not so much about background as it is about the ability for the person to be coachable and to follow a system of success that's been proven time and time again, that you simply follow directions and you put the work in and you stay positive through the ups and the downs, and more often than not, the system works just fine and people realize the success that they put into it.
Yeah, I've had, I even had some folks, because I was doing very well with doing some Medicare Advantage stuff when I first got back into the insurance industry. And I had some folks, say, with your book of business, things like that, you could just go and kind of do this on your own. Why did you choose this particular upline with David and this system and things like that? And the answer was very simple, because it's already been proven. I'm not there to reinvent the wheel. It's worth it to me. And I'm reminded of that illustration, David. I don't know if you've ever heard, but the owner of the factory sitting in his office one day, and his factory is running smooth, and all of a sudden everything shuts down. The conveyors stop, the fans stop blowing, everything stops running, the lights go out, and he's freaking out. It's just bleeding money. And so he calls the electrician. Electrician comes out, stands around, looks around for a little bit, and goes over to one of the boxes and turns this little screw about a half a turn, and everything lights up like a Christmas tree. Conveyors are running, fans are spinning, lights are on, and of course the owner is just absolutely elated. You've saved my life. Thank you so much. I could not have done this without you. How much do I owe you? And the electrician said, well, that'll be $10,000. And the owner said, well, really, $10,000? You were here like 5 minutes. Are you kidding me? It would be $10,000. So the owner said, you know what? He thought he was outsmart. He said, I'll be glad to do that. He said, I'm going to need an itemized bill, though, of what all you've done. And the gentleman said, that'll be just fine. So he took out his invoice. He wrote something down, handed it to the owner. And the owner looked at the invoice and smiled and went and wrote him a check for $10,000. And the invoice read like this. It said, turning screw, $1. Knowing which screw to turn, $9,999. And that is, I'm telling you, it is so worth it. And knowing that going into a system that hasn't been proven is so scary. And I know sometimes you can take chances and you can have big gains, but you can also have big losses by taking chances. And I'm just the kind of guy that likes to go to a proven system, and your system is absolutely proven.
Very, very good words of wisdom there, Wade. I think you, again, described it in essence exactly how I feel about this process. At the end of the day, you've got to have the disposition in order to be successful in this business to simply just follow what's already been done. And if you can do that and apply a little work ethic, some amazing things can happen. So before we end the call, Wade, I just would like to hear if you got any last words, any last comments before we wrap things up.
Well, again, just in closing, I do want to thank you again for the opportunity and the support. That's one thing I will say. If there's a new agent listening to this call, I can tell you categorically, without hesitation, that the support that David gives and that we give our agents that are under us is second to none. It's hard to find someone that will take the time and mentor and respond to phone calls and emails and those types of things. And there's a lot of guys out there that may have a similar system and may say they have a system like David's, but and they might, but if the support isn't there, then it doesn't really matter. So I wanted to thank you for that and let everyone know that it's real. It's worked for me, tremendously. And then I guess the other thing is, to be successful, I would just encourage all the folks that are looking into this business or trying to do something different to be sincere with what they're doing and truly trying to help these folks. Because I can tell you, they can smell it, they can sense it. It's something that people notice and recognize. And Lou Holtz, the famous coach for Notre Dame and sportscaster now, he wrote a leadership book, and one of the things he said was, when you meet someone, they're always going to ask these 3 questions, and that is, can I trust you? Do you know what you're talking about? Are you competent? And do you care about me? I go into every household reminding myself that when I see these folks, they're going to ask those, and not necessarily out loud, but in their mind, they're going to be asking those three questions. Are you confident? In other words, do you know what the heck you're talking about? And we should, obviously. Can I trust you? And do you really care about me? I think if we do that in each and every home, you just can't help but be successful, in my opinion.
Well, Wade, thank you so much for your kind words, and over the past several years of working together, it's certainly been a pleasure. I have enjoyed the process of getting to know you, but also what you bring to the table as an agent and as an agency manager. And the last thing I'll leave with is that I really hope that you guys listening to this call have found it as illuminating and as enjoyable as I have. I always love doing these interviews because you get to pick the brain of people who are actually in the trenches experiencing success in the final expense business. If you've listened to this video or you've listened to this call and you have talked to Wade or you have looked into potentially getting involved in the final expense agent mentorship business through our activities, maybe you've talked to Wade or somebody else, that's fantastic. My recommendation to you, if that's the process, feel free to reach back out to Wade and get back with him if after listening to this you're more fired up and pumped up about potentially having a partnership with us at feagentmentor.com. Also, if you're an agent that just found my website or listening to my videos on YouTube and you like what you hear too, feel free to leave a comment at the bottom of the video. You're also welcome to go to my website and then reach out through me through the contact tab. Just fill out the form and I'll be happy to talk to you as well. In the meantime, I really appreciate your time. I know you're extremely busy, Wade. And thank you guys for taking the time to listen. I hope you all have a great day.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.